Welcome to the Love and Longevity Podcast, where we have conversations about love, from relationships and friendships all the way to aging, care for your parents or your grandparents, and tips and tools for living your best life as long as you can. I'm your host, Christian Ross, founder and chief happiness officer at Happy Talks. Every episode, we want to provide actionable insights for you. So I'm so excited for our next guest, Miss Carlita White. She is the proprietor of Carlita White Jewelry. She's wearing one of her pieces right now. We will get into that later. But I'm very excited to talk to you about your journey to entrepreneurship and you moving somewhere that you never lived before.
Yes.
Later in life.
Yes.
So first, I want to start off by asking you, when you think about just hard things in life or just doing things, what is your ethos? What's your thought about just taking action?
If it has to be done, it has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just as simple as that. When I became a caregiver, I didn't want anybody else to care for my husband. I didn't want anybody else to care for my mother. Both of them always supported me. So I wanted to do everything I could for them. So it had to be done.
I love that. And that's love right there.
Yeah.
Like caregiving it's like the ultimate love. And I know people use the word sacrifice a lot. And yes, there's definitely sacrifice, but it's such an expression of love.
It is. It really is. I wouldn't have done anything different.
Mm-hmm.
No, not unless it was more.
So what advice would you give to someone caregiving? Because right now, there are so many caregivers out there that don't feel seen, don't feel heard, don't know what to do. They're finding their way to navigating, and they're finding their way of their own self-care at the same time. What advice would you give to those people?
Not to feel guilty about what you can't do, because everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
And not to try to fit yourself into a mold of what others think caregiving should be. They're not the ones that's doing it. You are. And so I would do the best that you could do. Make sure you take your rest, and that your support system may not look like what you think it ought to look like, but your support system can be there.
Yeah.
And a lot of government agencies have support systems in place where you can get respite care so that you can take a break, meals prepared and delivered, anything that can save you time and money. And if anybody offers you a chance to get away for a few days, find a way to take it.
I think that's one thing that so many people don't do. They're like, oh, well, I'll go ahead for a few days. Or there's actually senior communities that have respite care where you can take 3 days and they're getting, your loved one's getting great care. They're being fed, they're being checked on, all the things, and they're going to check in with you.
Absolutely.
So definitely you're saying make sure you take those days.
Make sure you take those days, and make sure that you don't listen to what other people tell you should be doing or what you can be doing. Find out those things for yourself and decide what works for you and your situation.
When you were going through that, did you ever have like a notebook or just something that you wrote down things just for reference? Like what was your reference guide that you had for yourself as you were kind of going through, like making sure, am I taking a break, or check on these resources?
Actually, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I went according to my body.
Yeah.
And my mind. And if you overtire yourself, you'll start making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You'll start making mistakes in your decision making with the doctors and everything. So you have to always make sure that you're on point, because all doctors are not going to do what's best. They're going to do what's expedient. You have to be very careful about that. And it's your loved one, and you're going to have to make sure, that they're having the best care.
We're experiencing that right now with a family member where we're like, we have to make sure we are advocates because
Absolutely.
we need to make sure we're that voice. And no offense against doctors at all. We love you. We appreciate you. But we understand, just like everybody else, you have a lot on your plate. You have a lot of people, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things in addition to your own responsibilities.
Absolutely.
So, it's kind of like when you can move like water, the path of least resistance.
Right.
You're going to do it.
Yes.
So, but we definitely thank our healthcare professionals that are out there taking care of our families.
Yes. My mother had a great neurologist. My mother had Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
She got diagnosed in 2006 and she passed in 2019. And so the doctor knew that she had a strong constitution and that she would last a long time with it. My husband had an abdominal aneurysm and he was in surgery for like 19 hours. They lost him, brought him back. And so when they did bring him back, that was in 2001. He passed in 2009. It just had such a terrible effect on all his vital organs. And he developed early dementia. And so at one point, I was taking care of both of them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, for 3 years.
That's a long time to be responsible for care for two people.
Yeah, I would be in the emergency room all night, and then I would have to get out the emergency room the next morning and go to my mother. But my mother, her nickname coming up was called a militant midget.
That's the best name ever.
And when I tell you, she would be in the hospital when you were in there, and she would be turning upside down to make sure that you got the best care. And so I had to do the same for her.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the one thing, if anyone's listening or watching this comes from such a heart place. This comes from such a place of love when you're caregiving. And so if the one things you take away right now is to make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Make sure you are being the best advocate that you can be. And if you don't know something, seek someone out that can help you find that out.
Absolutely.
And what other thing would you say?
I was also in a support group for caregiving for people with dementia. And you just learn things not to say and not to do with people. And it makes it so much easier because you don't know, because you'll be telling, well, you have to do this and you have to do that. But they take offense to that.
Yeah.
They'll be combative. And so you just go along with the program. Oh, you did this. Let's try this. You just have to rephrase your words to get them to cooperate more.
What's interesting is I think about that as probably what my mother did with me as a teenager.
Yes.
Like if she says something to me a certain way, I'm like, I can't be too combative.
Yes.
But I'm semi-combative.
Right.
But when you reframe it and you're like, well, you did this, so XYZ, it changes it. So
Right. And then the other thing is that I've always wondered, where do people go in their mind to adjust to what they're going through? After my husband passed, I found papers where he was writing down everything that was happening to him.
What?
Yes. And so that made me know that he was aware. And so they will say very mean things to you, because they're angry that this is happening to them.
Yeah.
And so it may sound real. They just can't help it.
Yeah.
Because they're angry. I don't know how I would feel.
Yeah.
You see. And so my husband said some very cruel things to me when I was taking care of him, and so did my mother. But you just have to suck it up. You pray a lot. You pray an awful lot. And the one thing that I prayed for is that they would never think that I didn't want to do what I was doing.
Ugh. Thank you for sharing that, because as I had said before, it's just so many people. And I don't know if people know the numbers. You may say, oh, it's not my family. Oh, it hasn't happened. You're going to know someone.
Yes.
I was at the Alzheimer's Association. They said, look to your right, look to your left. One of the three of you is going to have Alzheimer's or dementia. So just hearing those numbers is frightening. We have to do all the things to have longevity.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Christian Ross, founder and chief happiness officer of Happy Talks, where we provide social phone calls for older adults. So while you're thinking about the care of your loved one, remember, Connection is key to optimal health, and we would love to partner with you. Go ahead and visit www.happytalks.com. When your daughter told me, before we met, she said my mom has a jewelry line, and then she sent me the website, and she sent me your social media, and I was like, okay, Miss White, get it. And so, like, how did you start this business? Where was it born from?
Actually, there was a young lady who opened up a bead shop near my mother.
Okay.
And I took a class and I was hooked. But I only did it for therapy as a caregiver. So when I would put my mother to bed, my husband to bed, I would go downstairs with my beads and work on jewelry. It never occurred to me to have a business until a young lady that I met asked me to make some jewelry for her to go with her clothes for a conference. So I say, sure. I say, bring your outfit over and let's see what we have to go with it. And so she bought her outfits for a whole week. Okay. So I
She was
said,
like, you're about to work.
right. And I said, whoa. So I was nervous.
Yeah.
Okay. I really didn't know what to charge, so I had to do research on that, look at formulas, how to pay myself. And then I started taking more classes because you just have to know if you're going to be, selling things to people.
Yeah.
You want it to last. You want to have a good product. I started taking classes. I always liked background, so I took lapidary classes, learning how to cut and polish my own stones.
What?
I took stringing classes, and I always wanted to go in a dig, to actually dig for my stones to get it in the natural, but COVID came along, with the caregiving, I never had a chance to do that.
Yeah.
And so the next best thing was the lapidary classes.
Nice.
I found out I was just hooked. And I found out that I like big jewelry. I like statement jewelry. And I wasn't wearing it. But after a while, with raising children and then taking care of sick spouses and parents, you kind of lose yourself. But when I look back over old pictures, I always wore big jewelry.
Wow.
Before I had my child and even after. But then life starts life and you just like kind of lose yourself. Those things are no longer important. You don't focus on those things. But then when I started making jewelry, it came back. It's just what I like. I realized everybody doesn't like it. And so I just had to realize my jewelry is not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I just target my audience. I do make smaller pieces on request. It just morphed into a business. So in 2009, I actually got my license for a business and still taking classes, still learning, learning about being an entrepreneur. I learned that things that I did working 40 years in the government didn't apply to being an entrepreneur.
Oh, this is entrepreneur life is very different.
It's very different. It's very different. And I never worked it consistently because I was always in caregiving mode. But the events that I did gave me so much relief and joy, meeting other people, learning about other people, the things that they did that I was never exposed to, working 40 years in the government, And so it was more than making jewelry. I made great social connections.
Yes.
I had first-time customers who became friends, really good friends. And I have a lot of younger friends. People always say, well, you don't make new friends after you get a certain age, but that's not true. And you can make very good friends, And I think The best thing about being entrepreneurs is the relationships that you build. I don't think anybody can be a successful entrepreneur without building good relationships.
I 200% agree with you on that. So it's interesting when you talk about entrepreneurship because you hit all the things that if you go to classes or you just Google what to do as an entrepreneur, you did through your classes and you also did innately, which was customer discovery, product development, just researching who your audience is, how to reach them, where are they, who are they? I mean, all those things that you've been learning and doing. And you said social connection. You know, that's dear to my heart, dear to my heart.
Yeah.
But like those relationships, I saw something the other day where on a podcast, they were interviewing someone and he said, you're being too transactional. It doesn't seem like you're making a relationship.
Absolutely. I saw that.
You saw that. But it's true. It's like you have to create relationships. And two, again, when we think about love and longevity, it's all about the relationships around you that are lifting you up when you get into situations where you're caregiving. And caregiving isn't a short situation. It's not a short time period.
No.
A lot of times it is years.
Yes.
And it's like you need those people to help lift you up when you're building a business, the people who you can talk to that understand what you're going through. Like, oh, I just had a return.
Yes. And also just to realize you're not perfect.
Right.
And so things will happen.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you will have pieces of jewelry that do break or something happens in delivery or whatever. Part of your really good customer service is acknowledging that and willing to do something about it. I know how I would feel if I bought something and something happened to it. And so, case in point, I had a young lady. This is my first experience. She bought a necklace from me and it was like $175. And it had a beautiful piece of carved coral on the end.
Ooh.
And she dropped it and the coral piece broke. And I couldn't replace it because I also specialize in one of a kind. I did not have another coral piece to put on that. And so I told her to come over to bring it and we would talk about it. Well, I was having company for dinner, but I didn't want her to wait. And so she was appalled that I had company and I still wanted. She said, do you know, you can call people and they won't even call you back. But I know how I would feel if I bought something for that amount of money and it broke. So what I told her, I couldn't replace it, but I was having a showing, you know, in the next week and a half, and that I would call her the day before when I got it all set up, and she could pick out another piece that she liked. You know,
that's service. That's beyond service. That's exceptional service that we're not seeing right now.
Right. And so she couldn't believe it. So she did come over, but she also bought 2 more pieces and spent $350 more. And we still communicate to this day, you know, and that happened so long ago.
Yeah.
You know, and actually, she's one of my favorite people because she is such a positive person and she likes to pour into other women. So I found out about chair yoga through her, eating properly, because she would have these meetings once a month for women and just invite you in. And my investment person, I got through her. He came in to speak to us one time. And so she would just have get-togethers for us, you know, and also every so often, you know, she texts me and checking on me since I moved. And so that's what I'm talking about, building relationships.
Yes. There's nothing like it.
Right.
You know, if you're someone who just hasn't had the opportunity to create relationships, go on meetup.com. Look online and look for people who you think can be trusted. But connection is key. And whether it's business or just life, connection is so key. So have 2 things to ask you before we say goodbye to each other for right now.
Okay.
Which is, you moved later in life.
Yes.
And earlier you said action. You just got to do it if you're going to do it.
Right.
What was your thought process moving?
Well, I had always planned to move when my caregiving days were over.
Okay.
Because when I did work, I saw where people were only children. I have an only child,
Mm-hmm.
and their parents lived in another state, refused to move close to them. And then when they got sick, they had to keep going back home and bring back. And I didn't want to do that to my child.
Yeah.
So I saw the effects of health and, their career and everything that it took on them. I decided I wasn't going to do that. But then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they put it on hold. But during the pandemic, I was taking classes online and I was packing up my house, purging, getting rid of things. And then this young lady named Christian Ross referred
Like, what are we talking
a
about?
realtor to me in my home state who happened to be a trustee at my church. When she
didn't know
showed up,
that.
oh yeah. When she got, I said, I know you. So, but she was excellent.
Yes. Thank you, Erica Solomon in
Yes.
the Washington, D.C. area.
Yes, she was just excellent. She was a godsend. And she showed me how to pack up my house. And I did that. I gave myself a date. That I was going to be finished by come hell or high water. So,
You're like, it'll be done.
Right. So when I called Erica and I told her I was done, she came in and she said, where's that cape at? She saw my house, after 30 years of living. And so that's what I did. I relocated to Atlanta from Baltimore, and so I could move closer to my daughter. Yeah.
I love that. And so many times, parents don't want to move. So
Right.
commend you for making that move and doing it while you're healthy and thriving.
That's when I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to do it when I was still healthy. I didn't want that burden on her.
Which, speaking of healthy, you have a personal trainer.
Yes.
What's your workout longevity plan? What do you do to stay active?
Actually, I think if it wasn't for him, I would be in much worse shape than I am, because caregiving and lifting people for all those years, it takes a toll on your body. And I developed COPD, a lot of things, and so stayed at the orthopedic doctor. But anyway, I just started working out. Well, got this trainer after my 75th birthday. And he's been with me now for almost 2 years.
Wow.
He has me boxing, doing squats, push-ups, walking. He also works with me on keeping my balance, being able to reach and lift, and how to catch myself if I fall, if I'm falling. So he concentrates on a lot of things that you would for an older person. Like he wouldn't train me the same way he's training a 25-year-old, And so he does a lot of occupational therapy, the reaching up in the cabinets with heavy canned goods and things like that. And what I like about him is he explains everything, what it's for,
I like that.
what it's going to do. And he does everything 3 times in 15-minute segments, he say, so that your brain also remembers. And I just like that. And he'll get on you about your diet too. So don't have nothing out showing that you're not
like
supposed to-
Oreos.
Right.
What are those?
Right. And he's a person who prepares a lot of his own food. I told him I was going to make some chicken noodle soup one day. And so he said, well, oh, yeah. I said, yeah, I just used part of my rotisserie chicken. He said, oh, have you ever read the label on the rotisserie chicken?
Gosh.
And I said, are you going to do this to me right
Yeah,
now?
I'm like, please, give me a break. Give me a break.
He said, if it's a chicken, why does it have all of those things on the label? I said, and I had one that I was going to make soup, and I looked at the label and I threw the chicken away because he just makes you feel so bad,
You have given so many jewels in this time from just how to be the best caregiver that you can be, how to look for resources, starting a business and what to do. You weren't even expecting
I
it.
know, but when you have a daughter like mine and she is like a pit bull. She is so tenacious, mind. You have to do this. If you want to do this, you have to do this. You have to look like what you do. You have to do this. You have to do that. And then she's the best marketing director that anybody could have.
And I'm sure you get a great discount.
Yeah. She just promotes you and keeps promoting me. She's really a blessing to me.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you are looking, you may be listening, but if you're looking, please open your coat. This is a Carlita White jewelry piece. You can go to her website at carlitawhitejewelry.com, and we're going to make sure to have a link in the show notes.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I have to ask you one final thing.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one thing you would share with anyone listening about mindset or just life, what's one piece of advice you would give?
Never think it's too late. God will always make room for your gifts. Always.
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 On that note, Miss Carlita, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, Christian.
Thank you for joining us at Love and Longevity with Christian Ross. If you enjoyed what you heard, give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform and be sure to follow us. And if you like more from me, you can subscribe to the Happy Talks newsletter at the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening.